In today's episode, we're joined by special guest Rita Rogers to help us find the truth amidst increasingly a distracting world. We'll uncover the potential dangers of fluoroquinolones and challenge the common assumptions about the safety of Tylenol and Motrin. Keep listening for an insightful discussion that will equip you with the knowledge to make informed choices for your health.
The Discovery Doc Podcast, where your journey to empowered, non-toxic living begins. Join me, Dr. Cece, a doctor of nursing practice, self-proclaimed toxin tamer, and mama of four, alongside
me, Anna Kate, your medical mystery overachiever. Together, we'll uncover the latest in functional medicine, debunk health myths, tame toxins, and provide practical tips for thriving in a modern world.
Get ready to take control of your health with expert insights, raw stories, and actionable wellness strategies designed to help you and your family lead vibrant, toxin-free lives. Let's discover together.
Well, welcome back to the Discovery Doc Podcast. We're continuing our conversation with Rita Rogers, and I'm so excited about this topic.
We haven't talked about it yet.
I want her perspective.
I know. So this whole MAHA movement, we have actually, this is the first time that we're bringing it up, so I'm excited to be doing so with you, Rita. If y'all have not listened, go back and listen to our first two conversations with her in the previous weeks. But we just, right now is such a kind of pivotal time for like everything that's going on with RFK and just kind of promises that are being made for the first time in a very long time, and like removing fluoride from water and food dyes and, you know, bettering just the food that is in our public school system for kids who are, you know, growing up eating said garbage from day one. So we're just going to see where this conversation goes. What are your thoughts? What are your hopes? I guess we could start with. What are your hopes in terms of what is going on right now in the political world?
My hopes would be that we go back to constitutional government and we basically eliminate a lot of these three-letter agencies that are unconstitutional in the first place, of all the powers, all three powers at once that were like the Constitution tried to limit that, right? By way of having the three branches of government. But then we went ahead and made all these three-letter agencies that the Congress gives a budget, and then the agency itself goes ahead and executes, makes law, and enforces the law. And that's not how our government was set up. So that would be my hope. That's a very unrealistic hope, but that would be my hope.
Well, we are a constitutional republic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one ever says that. People are like, we have democracy. No, we're a constitutional republic. Stop.
Yeah.
I mean,
we have a
paperwork.
democracy. Yeah. We have a democratic government that was set up as a constitutional republic. But people generally, like, I'm not that wise about it, but people just generally don't understand how our government was set up. And I think that would be a good thing for people to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. With the health side of things, this is where I'm super cautious, only because of how our society is kind of set up and how long it's operated a certain way. Is someone like RFK comes in and he's been battling and arguing for the same things for a very long time. It's not new to him, but it's new to a lot of Americans to see it on kind of a more in-your-face platform, where when you talk about kind of the health of our society, the lack of health of our society, I should say,
yes,
in terms of Americans, you know, having the highest rate of chronic disease in the world. And that really starts with our kids. When we see the kids and the prevalence of childhood illness, or that kind of catapults into adult chronic illness, those diagnoses and those rates are off the charts, and they are worsening. This is not something that is improving. And do not at me. It is not because we have better diagnostic tools. I cannot stand that argument. It's not true. There are rates of pretty much everything is worsening, from autoimmune conditions, obesity, heart issues, you name it. So for me, someone like RFK comes in and we live our life a certain way where I resonate with a lot of that personally, but a lot of Americans do not, because of how just what is available and what is convenient and what so many generations of Americans, how they have lived. What are your thoughts on kind of that aspect where, okay, this guy can come in and help reestablish some rules here that we know can better a lot of Americans' health, But what about the receptive end of that? Someone who's been living a certain way for so long, they don't really care what the ingredients are. They just want their flaming hot Cheetos because they taste good. What are your thoughts with kind of the depths of the American people, and how do you change a society that's lived a certain way for so long?
Well, I don't think you can unless we take away freedoms. And so this is where a lot of people, will balk at my argument, and maybe your listeners are going to hear this, and I would just really encourage them to hear what I'm saying. So I am absolutely against food dyes. I don't like food dyes in my food. We don't, go out and put things in our pantry that have food dyes in them.
That's a never. That's a never for your kids.
We found a never.
You never give your kids
so we don't go do that. Yeah, we don't go do that stuff. We have whole foods. We cook from scratch. These are choices we make. But they're choices we make. And unless you tell families hey, we're taking the flaming hot Cheetos, as you said, we're taking them off the shelf because this is not good for you. We're removing that ability for you to buy them. That's not going to change. And so I think this is where the philosophical conversation comes in that we aren't having. We're having so many conversations right now about issues what food should we be eating? What things should be, what should we be watching? What should we be doing on all these little micro level? But overarching, what's our philosophy? Is our philosophy freedom? What's our philosophy for the economy? All of these things. And then from there, personal responsibility comes in. The reason I think that we're seeing all of these people making really bad decisions and overwhelming our healthcare system is because we've made it really easy for them to make those decisions and get out of the decision. Yes, you may remain obese because your decisions have been bad about what you're eating and how you're moving your body, but we can help you still live a really long life, while maintaining that body habitus and your health habits. And we'll pay for it too. And people get really mad at me when I talk about CMS, Medicare and Medicaid, and about how we fund it and all these things. They're like, oh, so you don't want to help poor people with, their medical bills. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if we give back responsibility to the individual, then they have to be responsible for themselves. Part of the reason we're in this situation isn't big pharma. Yes, big pharma is doing bad things, but the reason we're in this situation is because government and big pharma are in bed together. That's the reason, because government and big food are in bed together. If we remove this and separate this and just have big pharma over here and just have government over here, and we haven't done this public-private partnership that is unconstitutional in the first place, then we put responsibility back in the hands of the people. We put the finances, government stops taking, you're paying for it anyway. People are like, oh, you don't want the government to help people with their healthcare? Dude, the government isn't helping you with your health care. You are. Somebody else is paying for it. The American people, the government doesn't have money without the American people, and people do not understand that. Yeah. They tax us, they print money, which also takes money from us by way of inflation, and then they give it back to people. So they take it and give it back. It's a cycle. If the government stopped taking our money and giving it to these industries and then funneling us through the industry, by way of pharma or food or whatever, if we just maintain personal responsibility, a lot of these problems would go away. And I don't think these problems will go away easily. I feel so sad for RFK when I hear him say, I'm going to make America healthy again. I'm like, but I think he is, I'm sorry, I'm rambling now. I'm on a tangent, but I think he has a big heart. There are so many things I disagree with him on, but there is so much I agree with him on. And I really think he has a heart for the people. And I feel sad when I hear him say, that he's going to make America healthy in 4 years, and how much of a task that is for one man to take on his shoulders, because he can't. Yeah. He can only, I hope, my hope for him is that he is able to disentangle some of the bureaucracy from the public corporations and allow people to have a choice again, get better information to the people. That would be my hope. But I don't know if you guys saw Bill Cassidy, the head of, I think he's the head of the finance committee, not the other one, but one of the committees that did the hearing for RFK. he put out a letter explaining why he did, in fact, vote through the committee to advance RFK's nomination to the head of HHS. And he basically said that he had a meeting with him and that he is binding RFK to him to meet with him monthly and like have all these meetings with him, and he won't be able to I can't remember the exact language, but basically was stating that he's not going to allow RFK to overturn any of the current research on vaccines and things. And so I feel like he's going to have a really hard fight against the politicians that have been in Washington for a long time. But I just hope he can disentangle some of the public-private partnership and reduce the size of HHS. That would be very good.
Yeah, even making that public knowledge is big. So we know, any of us who are in healthcare should know that there is bias present. We should know who is funding certain studies. We should know why studies are not unbiased and that they are very political based and very just money based in terms of profit. So I think even that fact, just making that more public knowledge by saying, hey, like connecting the dots for the average person and then allowing that person to do deductive reasoning and figure out what they want to do. But I think when you were talking, something else that came to mind that I think is a huge feat is the marketing aspect. Is we don't turn on the TV, average Americans, and get inundated with walking and movement and mobility and, you know, whole foods and nutrient dense diets. We get marketed with quick short-term solutions to a chronic problem. You know, we get marketed the fact that, oh, you are obese, okay, here's the GLP-1. And then even like, did y'all see the Super Bowl commercial last night?
Yes.
For her, hers and
hers. Yeah.
Okay, so at first I was drawn in and I was like, oh my gosh, look at this commercial. This is amazing. I'm like slapping my husband. I'm like, yes. And then I knew what hers was. I didn't realize there was a Hims side to it too. So I was kind of confused by that. And so then I get to it and I'm like, oh, you're just selling a product, which is a GLP-1, which is a medication, and you're bashing the people who are profiting off of that medication and then turning around and offering the same medication. It's all marketing tactics. So we turn on the TV, and even when it seems like it's going in a different direction, it's not. It's still leading to a certain drug that people profit off of. So I think for the average American to be inundated with that information from day one, that's a whole psyche that you have to break. That's not just, oh, you give additional information and then they can make their own decisions. That is an addictive, habitual behavior that has to be broken because of the amount of information that is on billboards as you're driving or on the TV and commercials that is just inundating your brain from day one of a quick fix that is a drug instead of a natural, quote, pharmacy like nature or, you know, natural remedies or diet or exercise. There's so much that, I agree with you.
Did y'all notice the theme?
I did. Women.
Well, PSA, all of the commercials, like 50 to 60% of them were in a PSA format. So like how Tim first started, hey, here's the issue, here's the empathy, here's the sympathy, here's all the things. These are the things that you need to know. Oh, well, here's the solution, is this product, is this instant quick fix. So the other thing also is we, especially 80s and 90s babies, we grew up eating healthier junk food. And I mean that to say, like, our Cheetos had annatto and real corn, and they were fried in beef tallow, and they were packaged, and it was great. Well, now those same new Flamin' Hot Cheetos have 47 ingredients, and none of them are actual
real.
food. So I think that that's the other thing that we're struggling with as a society, and millennials is, well, like, oh, I grew up eating that stuff. I grew up. But it's not the same, right? It's not, I'm not giving my kids the same thing that I grew up on, and I'd love to. I haven't had McDonald's, and I don't do fast food, but I've had it in a long time. But I remember going to McDonald's and getting hot fries, and my brother wanted not hot fries because he got really hot fries one time, and it burned his mouth. It was like, no, not hot fries, or not hot fries. So, but it's different. And then when they changed, they weren't any good. And then you just naturally stop eating them. But we get into that.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that we are struggling with, is not only the awareness of what's in the food now, but why it's different from what we grew up eating, and not making that correlation.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that commercial up. That I was chasing toddler most of the time, so I didn't see much of the Super Bowl ads, but that one I did catch, and I was just like, this is the point. Like so the Maha movement's big. They recognize that. They use so many keywords within that advertisement to get people in. And then they put on you something. They even used made in the USA. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
They even told you that the GLP-1 was manufactured in the USA. So they struck so many chords in that ad, marketed to you, and then sprung on you this GLP-1. And it's just like, so what's the solution? It's education. And even like Anna Kate, with what you were talking about, with the change from how 80s, 90s foods were made, the same foods made now are made differently and with more chemicals and things. It's education, because you can legislate a lot of these things away. Absolutely. But there's going to be a bad side to that as well. And not necessarily within just like the individual ingredients, like that's fine, whatever. But when you continue to give things over to the government instead of require personal responsibility, we're going to end up in a bad place. So how do we change that? We keep educating people. And let's be honest, like there are a lot of well-educated people that understand these things that just don't care.
Yeah.
Like you can't make people care. Like I know so many people that buy all the things that, you know, we're talking about that are not healthy for you, that are causing disease, that fully know that they do, and they just don't care. So I really think the best answer is education and putting personal responsibility back on the person.
Right. It does come down to that, because, and I stress this a lot, is like there are good starting points in terms of education. Like let's take the EWG or that Yucca app or whatever. But at the end of the day, everything can be bought. So if you look
absolutely,
even with like the EWG, if you look at certain ingredients and in something that's EWG verified, you'll find an ingredient on there of something that's EWG verified that on a different product is labeled as, you know, a 4, which is kind of mid-grade toxic. And everybody can be bought. And so even on those educational platforms, I always caution people to say, hey, it's a good starting tool to get used to looking at certain things, get used to reading certain things, but don't even rely on that. Like the only person you can rely on is yourself, and is to look at and dissect kind of everything that you're either putting out in your body or putting into your body or bringing into your home. That responsibility does lie on you, especially in terms, if we're talking about marketing, with simple packaging, you know, things that can be labeled on packages. Or if we're talking about food dyes, okay, cool. They just came out and relabeled 3 food dyes to not say, you know, red, blah, 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 but to put a different name on it, but it's the same chemical ingredient. So there's these loopholes that occur in the government for whatever reason, where that responsibility is always going to rely on us, which is unfortunate. You know, my 8-year-old will ask, she'll be like, well, mommy, why do they allow it if they know it's bad? And I'm like, I have no answer for you, you know, because it shouldn't be up to us to have to dissect the grocery store to find actual edible foods that are not chemical causing issues.
Antifreeze should not be in salad dressing, but it's in every single one.
But unfortunately, here we are. So deep dive question for you. With all of this kind of going on, what are some of your hesitations, or what do you think that people should be kind of the most cautious of? There's this huge movement, and I think huge movements often lead to people being a little blind or bandwagony, or honestly distracted. What is something that you're specifically kind of cautious of, that you're just kind of watching from the background a little bit right now?
People tagging onto this movement in the same way that they tag onto others, and asking the government to step into the parents' role. I just think anytime we ask the government to step in and do the job that parents should, we're asking for something potentially dangerous. And I just think people really lack a foundational understanding of the things that they need to understand and make decisions for their own family, and overcomplicate things that shouldn't be overcomplicated. Like talking about all these foods and things. There are areas in which it is very hard to discern and to understand, like when it comes to plastics and chemicals in our water and, water supply and all those things, that's hard to avoid, But when it comes to foods, it's really not. And it's really not that complicated. I just tell people, like, eat the food that God made that man didn't try to make better. And when we get back to a foundational understanding, it's very simple. And so I think that a lot of times we're trying to outsource all of these decisions and all of this education and all of this information back to the government because we think it is too complicated for us to do on our own. But I would just caution people against that. And I would also say that Christians are kind of like I can bring up Christianity and things. That's okay.
Yeah. We're going to dive into that whole topic next segment.
Okay. I thought so. I thought this was okay to, bring that in, because I don't ever want to make people feel that they can't hear me because of my belief system and things. But I obviously, I am a Christian, and I think the medical freedom community has, during the COVID times, people kind of joined this whole medical freedom community and thought everybody was very like-minded. And now I'm seeing a lot of Christians cross over into these new age areas without realizing it, because they hear things like Christ consciousness or things like this. And this whole Maha movement, it's great to be aligned with people who are like-minded on one thing. That doesn't mean Christians can't associate with somebody who's non-Christian and both believe that food dyes are bad. That's great. But I think Christians need to be aware of what they're aligning themselves with overall. And I don't know, just be a little more discerning.
Yeah. That new thought. It's there's new age and then there's new thought, which is we're
going to talk about that next segment.
Yeah. So anyway. Oh, and AI. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm not going to go into it because I could talk for an hour about it, but AI, biodigital, transhumanism, all those things sound really out there, but they are here. They are hardcore here. And people need to be discerning with that. It's not something we can stop, but it's something we can discern how we take it in our own lives.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we are going to stop this conversation here. We're going to continue it next week with a Christian worldview, which I hope that you will join us for, because it's really something that is important to both of us, and especially having on guests that are like-minded and expanding that view. So if you have a question or you want to join the conversation, visit discoverydoc.com/podcast page and drop us a voice memo or a question, and we will answer it on a future episode. Some risks are worth taking, but is this one of them? Today, we're diving into the real impact of, say it, I can't say it. Fluoroquinolones. I wanted to add an X in there. Fluoroquinolones on your body, your environment, and why it's time to start paying attention.
Okay, so fluoroquinolones, we've talked about what they are, where we can find them, food sources, as well as what infectious agents they could potentially be prescribed for you or for your family members. And now we want to get into the nitty-gritty of questions that are important to ask your healthcare provider, because there's more and more evidence coming out that fluoroquinolones are leaving patients disabled for life. There's actual doctors and practices out there who have dedicated their time completely to seeing patients who are injured from fluoroquinolones. So that is why it is important for us to kind of dive into the nitty gritty of it. So fluoroquinolones, they were first introduced in the 1980s. And
You're fine.
I can't. Guys, I was sick a week ago, and it's just lingering, and it's really annoying me, but here we are.
Her ears are stuffed and
everything's stuffed. Fine. No, to me, everything I can hear.
Yeah, but you sound fine to us.
Okay, great.
Okay. Anywho, you do sound like you're stuffed up. But
I am.
It doesn't sound like it does in your head. You're fine. You're okay. I hate that part. I hate when it gets stuck. Like
Yes,
right
it's just stuck. Where's my girl Rachel? I need my chiropractor. Anywho, fluoroquinolones, they were first introduced in the 80s. And they quickly became popular because of their broad spectrum activity, which we've talked about in previous episodes. Go listen if you have not. They can treat a wide variety of infections with just one antibiotic. So obviously that makes it very appealing to the practitioner. At the time, they were kind of this breakthrough of modern medicine, and they were seen as a really awesome and potent alternative to older antibiotics.
Which is why it got overprescribed as a, hey, this will cover everything.
Yes. So it's very easily fall into that rabbit hole of, okay, great. I don't know what this is. Fluoroquinolone, which is a very dangerous place to be, and they should be used very specifically. So despite that early success, as AK was saying, overuse and misuse began to raise quite a bit of alarms. And in recent years, the FDA actually issued a black box warning, which i.e. is the most serious type of warning for a medication, for fluoroquinolones due to severe and sometimes irreversible side effects. Right.
Not cool.
Not cool. These include nerve damage, like peripheral neuropathy, so in your extremities, hands, feet, tendon ruptures, and a wide range of neurological side effects like confusion, hallucinations, and seizures.
Are these all on the inserts?
Yes.
Read your insert.
So, and when we say inserts, it's not like the little bottle you get from your pharmacy. If you pick it up from your pharmacy, it's not going to have these on the label of it, but you actually have to go to the manufacturer and read the insert. And or if you know, and again, what's the ending of our fluoroquinolones? Pop quiz.
Floxacin.
So if you see that you are getting prescribed an antibiotic that ends in floxacin, these are questions to ask your healthcare provider and understand your risks for.
Yes.
Okay. So tendon rupture and musculoskeletal damage. This is one of the biggest and most concerning side effects of fluoroquinolones are tendon ruptures, especially with the Achilles tendon.
Ow!
I know, but also shoulder, elbow, and other tendons. Studies have shown that people taking fluoroquinolones are at higher risk of things like tendinitis, and that tendon rupture that increases with age if you have any kidney dysfunction or kidney disease, and or if you are using concurrent steroids. It's so severe that the FDA in 2016 urged healthcare providers to reserve these antibiotics for only serious infections if and when no other options are available. So last resort.
No question. How long does it take to get to this place where tendons are rupturing?
On a fluoroquinolone? Oh, within a couple days.
Couple of days. So this is not a chronic antibiotic.
I had a patient who I got from a previous provider who within 7 days had an Achilles tendon rupture. Yeah. Yes, this is not chronic exposure.
This is acute exposure.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. Neurological effects. Fluoroquinolones have been used or have been linked to neurotoxic side effects, dizziness, confusion, tremors, memory problems, even hallucinations. It is definitely more concerning in older adults where cognitive decline and confusion may already be kind of taking place. But everything from that to seizures in healthy individuals and just impacting significantly our brain health has been found. So yes, this is a drug class that should be used very, very specifically and seriously when it is life-saving and there's no other alternative. Please know that. A big one that you won't find a lot of conventional doctors talking about is the mitochondrial damage that can also occur from fluoroquinolone use. The impact on the mitochondria, powerhouses of the cell. If we go back to high school biology.
Yep. It's where your LDL lives. It's the powerhouse of the mitochondria. You need LDL.
Yes, you do. But mitochondria produce all energy parts of the cells. And so fluoroquinolones can damage that, leading to chronic fatigue, weakness, and other long-term issues, our ability to detox and help the longevity and kind of healing or the antioxidative activity when cells are being broken apart too quickly. We can have patients who have chronic pain and muscle weakness from fluoroquinolone use. Another big category is gut dysbiosis and immune suppression because fluoroquinolones can absolutely disrupt the good microbiome the opportunistic organisms within your GI tract, but also kind of like the flowers that are blooming within your GI tract.
All antibiotics mess up your garden.
Yeah. So the weeds start to overgrow, which means that we can have an increased kind of risk of C. diff or other opportunistic organisms like strep or staph overgrowing, which then, of course, is cascades into patients who are left with chronic inflammatory conditions or worsening allergies or autoimmune conditions after fluoroquinolone use. These percentages are pretty wild. Now, it might not sound wild to you, but it absolutely is wild to me, where for something like a tendon rupture, so you can have a healthy individual where there's 0.5% of patients, 0.5% of patients are ending up with long-term disability, like i.e. needing surgical intervention from taking an antibiotic. That is
up to 7 days.
Yes. Like that is a wild statistic. It doesn't sound wild, but that is a wild statistic. Peripheral neuropathy, so left with long-term damage to the nerves, 2% of patients with ongoing symptoms in 40% of cases even after discontinuing the drug. So these are people who are left with this stuff after discontinuing the medication. In terms of central nervous system reactions, including seizures and psychosis, 1 in 2,500. I mean, that's nothing.
No.
That's nothing. Affecting 5 to 10%.
I mean, it's something because it's high comparative to.
Right. I'm saying like that,
Yeah.
yes. Like that is wild. But 5 to 10% of patients with mental health symptoms, 5 to 10%. Like that risk factor, that is huge. In terms of something like an aortic aneurysm, people are at 2.5 to 3 times higher a risk in patients on fluoroquinolones. So, and even something like arrhythmias or QT prolongation, 1 in 1,000 patients, leading to risk of sudden cardiac death. 1 in 1,000.
Okay, so what has to be going on that you need this class of antibiotics? What is so severe or so like, what are the things? Because I know that it covers a wide variety. So sometimes it just gets prescribed because they either don't take the time or don't do the additional test to figure out what it actually is.
I would say if someone is septic, like bacterial meningitis, things that I'm more scared of you dying from sepsis than of the percentages of this. Like that would be my line of stuff. I never use it ever. There's no reason for me in primary care to ever use this medication. Ever. If a patient has a UTI, a kidney infection, if there is some sort of pneumonia, my patients are not in the subclass that would ever really need a fluoroquinolone. Mm-hmm. You're looking at maybe a nursing home where there's an outbreak of a certain type of pneumonia that's uncontrollable. Okay. And like in more sensitive patient populations where there's a dense amount of them. And then the risk is higher for the actual disease. Yeah. But in terms of everybody else, I would say sepsis, bacterial meningitis, something like that, where it's life-threatening. Okay. Yeah.
Because this sounds like a dumpster fire in and of itself, but
there's no reason to use it.
Taking someone that has a chronic autoimmune or a chronic illness, and then this gets prescribed, that would be super detrimental. Mm-hmm. Like you already have joint pain, you already have fatigue, you already have all this other stuff going on. And then how would you know? And I'm sure it happens because people go to their allopathic doctor and they get prescribed this. But if you have all these other symptoms and then you have these additional symptoms on top, you wouldn't know the difference.
Right.
Unless like it's absolutely severe. I know I've talked about this before, that my Lyme fatigue is different than my lupus fatigue. Yeah. Like lupus is a little bit more manageable. It's still exhausting, but it's a little bit more manageable than the Lyme fatigue was. So having all of
like variables.
Yeah. Like how would you know? Like I don't even remember now. It's been a minute, but I don't remember my doctor sitting me down and saying, hey, here's all the side effects for doxycycline and here's the cascade that's going to happen. And because we're treating a viral infection with a bacteria, an antibiotic that is only used to treat bacteria, and it's not going to do anything for the Lyme, but I'm telling you it's going to it's going to help with your Lyme. But here's the cascade that's going to happen. And then here's the other antibiotic that I'm going to have to put you on in 6 months or a year or whatever. And like, I am still in the process I haven't been on antibiotics in since like 2019. And I'm still in the process of healing all of that Swiss cheese damage and from the Lyme and the antibiotics because the antibiotics pissed them off and put them away. So all that to say, I'm just tying it back to kind of our story, and just ask the questions, be aware, be, if you have thought about or have been on long-term antibiotics, like we're going to get into that in a little bit too, of like what to do instead or what the alternative is. But my doctors have never told me the contraindications.
This one you should always be told. So remember, fluoxetine, if you are getting an antibiotic that ends in a fluoxetine, unless you are in a life-threatening situation, please challenge that. And we'll talk to you on the next segment as to how to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this episode hit different, didn't it? If it makes you think of someone, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with them now. Let's spread knowledge, because knowledge is power. The more you know.
Mike, Super Short Show.
You've heard it your whole life. Doctors say Tylenol and Motrin are safe for kids. But is that the full story? Today, we're busting one of the biggest medical myths out there. Okay. I don't think it's safe for anybody, especially not kids, but they recommend it. That's the first step, is that you give your kid Tylenol before you take them to the ER if they have a fever.
Yeah, and you rotate. You rotate your Tylenol, you rotate your Motrin. How many times have you guys been to, well, maybe not people who listen to this podcast, but historically, working in a conventional pediatric office, how many times is that action item? Oh, just go home, rotate Tylenol and Motrin every 4 hours. And that's it. And it's symptom management, right? So pediatricians often recommend Tylenol, which is acetaminophen, and Motrin, which is ibuprofen, for fevers, teething, pain relief. However, and it's like it's water, how much it's mentioned in conventional pediatrics, but nobody, at least in my experience, nobody will tell you the possible adverse effects, or nobody spends the time to educate you on what to look for. We're just told as parents, hey, this is safe, do this. Anytime they have a little discomfort, alternate between these two.
Get rid of your fever or headache while destroying your gut microbiome and depleting your brain.
So
win-win.
While they can be very helpful in emergencies, full disclaimer, overuse can definitely lead to some health effects that are not talked about enough. So Tylenol, we'll start with Tylenol. Tylenol is a go-to recommendation for babies and kids. Research is uncovering some pretty significant concerns with Tylenol.
Tylenol is acetaminophen.
Yes.
So generic name is acetaminophen.
Number one is that Tylenol directly depletes glutathione. Glutathione is the body's major antioxidant. It's the most important antioxidant that we have to detox through the liver. It is crucial for our immune support, again, for detoxification. Acetaminophen so rapidly depletes glutathione that it makes the body more susceptible and vulnerable to certain toxins, infections, and oxidative stress, which means to break apart cells a little bit too quickly. It's especially concerning in babies whose detox pathways are already not mature whatsoever. And there are tons of this one. There are tons of direct links and actually lawsuits currently happening that has linked Tylenol and the use of Tylenol in pregnancy to neurodevelopmental disorders, including autism. So that correlation between prenatal and infant acetaminophen use and an increased risk of autism, ADHD, and other neurological issues, because it is thought to cross the blood-brain barrier and contribute to inflammation in the developing brain. That is a huge one. So we are still told, OBs still tell us, hey, take Tylenol. You can take Tylenol in pregnancy, but meanwhile, there's tons of lawsuits going on for this reason. Like, at what point do we say we're not going to recommend this anymore?
So it wasn't the post-delivery vaccine that the kid got. It was the mommy's back pain Tylenol use.
Potentially. Yeah.
I didn't say that out loud.
And or how about the thought that before every childhood vaccination, you're told to preload your child with Tylenol? because because they get little fevers afterwards or because of the pain. So in conventional pediatrics, we tell patients, hey, give your child a dose of Tylenol, come in, have the vaccines, get more Tylenol after. So you're depleting the glutathione.
And then get them flaming hot Cheetos and a Mountain Dew on your way home.
Which is, you're depleting the glutathione, which is helping the body detox, giving them an injection that's filled with things that we need to detox from, but you've impaired their ability to detox by directly giving them a dose of Tylenol right before and then continuing afterwards. Anyways, moving right along.
And doesn't painkiller consumption decrease the repair and collagen cascade?
Yes.
Sorry, we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
Sorry. I just
a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah,
okay. Exactly.
Continue. Sorry.
Acetaminophen also, so Tylenol has frequent use, has seen to dramatically increase the rates of childhood asthma, allergies, and seasonal allergies. One theory of that is that by reducing the glutathione or depleting it, we're increasing the oxidative stress or how those cells break apart in the lungs specifically, making them more susceptible to respiratory conditions. Liver toxicity. Acetaminophen is literally the number one cause of acute liver failure in the United States.
And people take it every day.
The number one, even in small doses, or in small overdoses, I should say, especially when combined with other medications like cold or flu syrups, can overload the liver. And so parents unknowingly kind of double dip and double dose by giving multiple medications that contain acetaminophen. I have a huge problem with it.
Okay, let's talk about ibuprofen.
Ibuprofen, so i.e. Motrin, right? It is considered
ibuprofen too, right? Okay.
It is considered a safer alternative to Tylenol, but carries a set of its own risks. Ibuprofen has been linked to hurting the GI tract and causing leaky gut. Any NSAID like ibuprofen is known to damage the gut lining and increase the permeability. And when you increase that permeability, you make way for more inflammation, for our digestive enzymes to not be able to develop as they need to, for our bile acids to not develop as they need to decrease our immune function within the GI tract, because it kind of lets things in and out of the GI tract that should be a closed system, also increasing the autoimmune condition risk for later in life.
And an NSAID is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug.
Exactly.
It's a mouthful.
It is. That's why I said NSAID and not all that.
Well, for those of you that don't, because people say, are commonly referred to as NSAIDs, and it's on commercials and it's on all kinds of stuff. But if you don't know what it means, it just means it's not a steroid.
Yeah. With ibuprofen comes kidney and cardiovascular risk as well. It can increase blood pressure, contribute to cardiovascular issues. And then the big one is fever suppression. We're told, especially for our kids, hey, anytime they have a fever, alternate Motrin and ibuprofen, or Motrin and Tylenol, and to suppress that fever. Why, as parents? Because we want our kid to be comfortable. But the reality is suppressing fever does nothing to shorten the duration of an illness. A fever is our immune system's way of attacking that bacteria or virus. So you're literally suppressing that defense mechanism, which actually in studies has prolonged the illness. So let the body do its work. Let it do its thing. You'll actually shorten the duration by not attempting to suppress that fever. Now, of course, there's stipulations there. If we have a kid who gets febrile seizures, or, it's a 104, 105, and they are just lethargic, we're going to do what we can to break it. But if it's a 101, 102 child is, sick, but not crazy lethargic, let the fever do its job. You're actually worsening the illness by inhibiting it.
And that works for both bacterial and viral infections.
Yes.
The body is designed to get hot enough that they can't live there. It's inhospitable. They don't like it.
Exactly. And there are other things that you can do to provide relief for yourself if you have a fever or if you're in pain. Obviously, hydration is a big one. You want to make sure to stay hydrated with your electrolytes, but tepid baths with some Epsom salt helps to soothe that discomfort without artificially suppressing the fever. Homeopathy, belladonna is wonderful for fever or discomfort can be used any age. Essential oils, putting peppermint diluted on the feet can help regulate body temperature. We always do the onion in the sock trick.
No, I love it.
But that works more in my opinion, for congestion and colds.
Respiratory.
Yeah, for respiratory. But peppermint diluted on the feet can actually help you regulate your body temperature. Chamomile is a good one. So for kids, Boron has camellia teething drops that are just soothing if you have a kiddo who's in pain. It just has camellia in it. which is wonderful. It's calming, it's anti-inflammatory. Clove or copaiba essential oil is wonderful. It has kind of natural numbing effects. For babies, in terms of teething, you can do little breast milk popsicles or a frozen washcloth that they can kind of chomp down on to naturally help soothe swollen gums. General pain, magnesium lotion is wonderful. There's one by Earthly. I think it's called Good Night lotion, but it's just straight up magnesium lotion. So you can rub that into muscles if we're having muscle cramps, muscle aches. Turmeric, ginger are both natural anti-inflammatory agents. Arnica, we use boron. So any little
Arnica is the jam.
Yes.
Stuff.
Any little bumps, bruises, I'll throw some arnica on it.
If you have an athlete that plays contact sports, give it to them before and after. It'll help with the soreness and bruising, and if they get their wisdom teeth taken out, that is like the key.
Yes, 100%. And one that I really like as a replacement for ibuprofen for headaches or even like acute injuries is called SPM Supreme. It's by Designs for Health. And this is a combo of 3 specialized pro-resolving mediators, which are called SPMs, that help support a natural inflammatory response and help your body heal a little bit faster. So you take, when we were all sick a couple of weeks ago, like these insane migraines, and you take a couple of those and works better and quicker, in my opinion, than even ibuprofen. And it's super safe, no adverse effects.
No side effects.
No, it's just derived from omega. That's it. So that's a really good one that I keep in my house at all times. If Tylenol or Motrin is needed, the point of this conversation is just to understand, how can you support your kid's body? How can you support your body if we actually need this medication? 1, only use it if and when it is truly, truly necessary. 2, give the lowest dose possible for the shortest amount of time to mitigate some of those long-term effects. 3, and probably the most important, is to support your detox pathways. So take glutathione. If you need your kid to be on Tylenol, give them glutathione, liposomal glutathione. We use New Medicas, but there's tons out there that you can use. Glutathione, vitamin C, and hydration, I would say, are the top 3.
Yep. Side note, you should do glutathione before you go under any kind of anesthesia. So if you go to the dentist and they give you gas, do glutathione the day before, the day of, and the day after.
Yep. 100%. Try to avoid using multiple medications. Sometimes there can be acetaminophen and things that you don't know. And so you're giving straight up Tylenol, but then you're also giving your kid or you're taking a cold or flu syrup that also has acetaminophen in it. So just try to avoid combo medications like that and prioritize your GI tract, especially after or during ibuprofen use. Mm-hmm. That's my spiel on Tylenol and Motrin. I'm done.
Well, until next time,
let's discover together.
We hope you found today's episode of our exploration of the truth amidst distraction, the risks associated with fluoroquinolones, and the safety of common pain relievers to be both informative and eye-opening. Remember, apply this newfound knowledge to your daily life, sharing what you've learned with others to promote greater awareness and understanding. Join us again for a more thought-provoking discussion that challenge assumptions and empower you to make the best decisions for your health. Stay tuned, stay informed, stay curious. Before diving deeper into the wellness world, let's pause for a quick disclaimer. The information shared on this podcast is for general informational and entertainment purposes only. While we love being your Discovery Doc allies, we're not here to replace your doctor or healthcare provider. Consider us your fellow health explorers, sharing our findings as we uncover the mysteries of well-being. Always consult with a qualified medical professional before taking any action based on the content of this podcast. Just like an archaeological dig, this disclaimer may change occasionally, so be sure to check back for updates. Stay healthy, stay curious, and keep exploring with the Discovery Doc.